Welcome back to another Bellows Blades review. Today we are actually going to be doing an unboxing of a knife that I just got in. Pretty excited about it. So as you can see here, it is a Kershaw. Kershaws are knives, I know I'll probably get a lot of hate for this, but I've never been overly fond of Kershaw knives. I have quite a few of them. I've even recommended them, believe it or not, to some other people who are looking for a budget-friendly knife to start out with. But there's something about Kershaw, their designs don't speak to me. And a lot of times the steel, of course, I've had their budget knives. The steel in those knives, it just doesn't seem like it wants to sharpen as well for me. I have trouble getting it sharp, keeping it sharp, things like that. So overall, just my impression of Kershaw has never been super high. I'm not really hating on them. They're okay for what they are. But this one I'm actually pretty excited about. So obviously Kershaw is owned by the same company that makes Zero Tolerance. I don't currently own any of those, so I can't speak to a whole lot to those. But I do know that they have a good reputation and they're known to be better, higher quality knives. So, I give them the benefit of the doubt that they have the ability to make a good knife based on that. And this knife in particular has gotten nothing but great reviews. So, what we're looking at today, we'll go ahead and show you here, is a Livewire, a Kershaw Livewire. So this is an out the front knife. It's Kershaw's entry into the out the front knives. And from everything I have heard about it, people love this knife. So I'm excited to see what all the fuss is about and see if I agree with all the hype. So starting out here, we're going to go ahead and pull this out. And what you're going to see is that I got the 50th anniversary edition of the Kershaw Livewire. And the reason for that was not so much that I really care about the 50th anniversary, design and all that, but this knife was $30 to $40 cheaper than any of their other models. And so for me, my plan is actually to use this as an EDC, almost like a beater knife. Maybe not quite that bad. I'm not going to intentionally abuse it or anything. But the knife that this is intended to replace is actually my Lightning Elite out the front. So this knife here, I have some videos up on, which honestly I need to do an update because my opinion has really evolved on this knife. So at first I was excited because it seemed to work real well, and then I ran into issues, and then that kind of dampened my spirit on it. But since then, since I've got those issues worked out, I have absolutely loved this knife. This knife is in my pocket all the time. Anytime that I'm going to be doing something where my knife might get dirty or abused, this is my beater knife. It's a $35 knife. I don't really care if I mess it up, but I've not done that so far. This thing is still rock solid. I've not had it fail to deploy since I fixed the issue that I originally had, which was a spring that was not seated properly inside the knife. The only thing is I have lost one of the screws. One of the screws worked its way out, as you can see there, and I lost that. But otherwise, this thing has functioned really well. Something else you might notice about it is this clip point design. It did not come with that. It was a drop point. I reprofiled it into a clip point just because I prefer clip points. But this review is not about this knife, so I'm going to stop talking about that. I do want to do an update review on this at some point, just because I've actually used it a lot since originally getting it. So I have a more informed opinion on the knife. So I love this knife, don't get me wrong, but the one thing that I'm not a big fan of, that I wanted just something a little bit better, is the steel. It's a fairly soft steel, so I'm having to constantly sharpen the knife, retouch it, sharpen out flat spots, stuff like that, anytime I use it very heavily, because it's just soft steel, which isn't that big of a deal. But the other thing is it's just kind of ugly. It's not the most attractive looking knife. So I was thinking, well, I have this, and then on the other extreme, I have this, right? The Microtech Ultratech. This knife is not really well suited, especially with the dagger blade, well suited for EDC function. And it's obviously a lot more expensive. So I'd feel a lot worse busting this thing up. So the question then becomes, what can I find that's in between those two? And that's where I arrived at this as the answer, the Kershaw Livewire. So we're going to take a look at this. This is, I just took it out of the box, so I've never even held one of these before. So I'm really hoping. Well, that's fairly impressive off the bat. Very smooth action. Extremely easy to actuate that blade. The one thing I will say is I've got a little bit of like spring squeak in this one. So that's not an overly pleasant noise when you're opening it out the front. It just makes it sound cheaper. This one's not really bad. It's not when you retract it, it's only when you deploy it. And I don't know how well that is picking up on the mic on the camera, but you could definitely hear it. And considering this is a $35 knife, well, actually, I guess that's got a little bit as well. But it's about the same, so you know what that is what it is. That being said, overall, as far as it's really smooth deployment, I like that. A lot easier to deploy than the Ultratech, which is, these knives are notoriously difficult. My wife and daughters are not even able to do this one-handed. They have to use two thumbs to get that to open. And the other thing is the aggressive jumping on the slide here is actually rough on the thumb, so a lot of people complain about that. So comparing that to this, I will say that the jimping's not nearly as aggressive, so it doesn't hurt the thumb. It's a lot smoother and easier to open and close that than it is the Ultratech. So that's a plus in my book. The actual button itself is a little thinner. I don't know that I like that. I think that the thicker button grips the thumb better as far as giving your thumb a better place to rest. But it doesn't feel like I'm going to have any problem with my thumb slipping off. So I'm not going to say that's too big of a con there. This knife feels very light, but talking about that, let's just go ahead and see. Let's go ahead and see what we've got here. So I want to go ahead and just check the weight of this compared to some of these other knives. So 3.07 ounces, so just pretty much right at 3 ounces. Comparing that to the Ultratech, 3 1/4. So obviously the Ultratech's heavier. And then the Lightning Elite on the lower end of the spectrum as far as price is the heavier knife at 4.2 ounces, which makes sense. So really, that is the lightest of the knives right there, the Kershaw Livewire. So that's kind of nice, having the lighter weight there. As far as actual measurements, so if we were to look at this, you're looking at a blade of about 3 1/4. I think it's a little over 3 1/4. I think they designate this as 3.3. I've seen some sites say 3.4 even. Based on that, it's literally just a little over 3 1/4. So, which is a good EDC, blade length. I don't have any problem with that. Overall length when it is deployed, you're looking at about 8.5, and the handle length is about 4.5. So those are your dimensions. Comparing that then to the Microtech Ultratech, you can see basically they're about the same length of knife. Your handle length, if you don't include the skull crusher there, or glass, actually it's a glass breaker. If you don't include that, you're looking at the handle is almost the exact same length, and the blade itself is pretty close to the same length as well. I think you get a little more sharpened edge on the Livewire because the edge goes down further than it does on the double-edged Ultratech. But pretty much these are the exact same dimensions as far as length goes. Width, you have a little bit wider grip, which I like on the Livewire. The Ultratech is fine. It's notoriously narrow or slim. For my larger hands, I like the slightly wider Livewire, to be honest. And even though this is only a single edge blade, you can see that the profile of the blade is actually not too far off from that dagger shape that you've got here. So penetration should be pretty similar, but you have the ability to put your thumb on the spine as you're doing work, which is nice. So that actually brings us to another question, which is blade play. What does that look like? So definitely there, as all out the fronts, well, almost all out the fronts do. Microtech is going to be releasing a zero blade play feature in some of their line. And of course, you've got the what is it? The Hawk Deadbolt, I think is what it's called. Of course, that is astronomically priced, and it, but it has zero blade play as well. So when you're looking at a $200 knife, you're going to expect to have a little bit of blade play. Even the Ultratech has blade play. And this feels to be about the same. As I'm feeling that, yeah. Back to back, side to side. Yeah, that one actually makes a little more noise when you do it, but the actual amount of movement feels like it's about the same. The crazy thing is this Lightning Elite actually probably has, it definitely has less side to side, and overall maybe about the same. And again, $35. So I'm not pitching that knife right now though, so I keep going back to it, but I really do love that knife for a beater knife. But this I think is gonna now replace it in my pocket, at least for a while, to see how it does, because I like having the better material, right? So aluminum handle either way on both of those knives, but you've got the MagnaCut steel blade. So this blade at just a little over 3 1/4, probably about 3.3 inches, is made out of MagnaCut, which is of course the new hot steel on the market. Everybody's trying to make stuff out of MagnaCut right now because it's such a balanced blade steel. So it all the properties that you want in a knife, it balances them all well. It's not notoriously bad at any of them, and it's decently good at all of them. So is this the best steel? Well, that all depends on your, on what your usage is going to be. If you're looking at something that's going to hold an edge forever, then MagnaCut is not what you're looking for. But if you want something that'll hold an edge a decent amount of time, but not chip or be brittle, MagnaCut is a great option, so you kind of have a balance of features there with the MagnaCut. As far as how sharp the blade is, it definitely came plenty sharp. You can feel that. I mean, that's definitely shaving sharp. And just to show you, of course, the paper test, you can see that that's definitely sharp. That point is also like a needle. I mean, it's, clearly sharp, not a problem there. It'll shave. We'll have to wait and see how well it does at retaining that edge, but it should do pretty good being MagnaCut. I will mention again, like I said, just that point. See if I can get something that really shows it. I don't know how well that shows on there, but it's just really fine here at the tip. So it definitely comes down to like a needle-like point. It would surprise me if that could withstand very much without breaking, just because of how fine it is. The only thing that I kind of look at, that does worry me a little bit, but the one thing that I do look at it and say, at least because of the shape of the blade, even if you broke that point off, it'd be very easy to kind of reprofile it and still have a more, I guess, common shaped point, not so needle-like. But if it broke, you could just kind of round it up here and have a more, maybe gradual and thicker point that would be a little stronger. So it wouldn't be too hard to reprofile that if you did happen to break it. So, but that's definitely something to keep in mind with this shape. Now, they do make a couple other blade shapes you can look at. This is the original blade shape of the Livewire. But yeah, just keep in mind that you're not going to want to put a lot of heavy abuse on that point just because of how fine it is. Even with the MagnaCut, I can't imagine it holding up to too much abuse. Of course, I could be wrong. Who knows? But typically speaking, when a point's that fine, you don't want to put too much stress on it. I do overall, you can see there, I think, if I show you, get some light on that, where it does say MagnaCut on the blade there. And then, of course, you have the designer diskin on there and then the serial number as well on the blade. And the kind of the maker's mark or brand there. And, of course, you've got the Kai USA, the parent company of Kershaw and Zero Tolerance there. So it is a USA made out the front. So in that aspect, it is similar to the Ultratech as well, made in the USA. Guys, I don't know. I think I'm going to really, really like this. I think my biggest complaint is one that a lot of people have mentioned is this really tiny pocket clip at an angle with the Kershaw branding on it. I really probably couldn't have, in my opinion, I haven't tried it yet. Obviously, I just unboxed it, so we'll see. Maybe I'll end up loving it. But in my opinion, just at a glance, they couldn't have done a worse job with the belt clip or the pocket clip. You've got a tiny little pocket clip. Looks like it's going to be really tight, hard to get over a belt, and which is something I've heard a complaint of, and I can see that. It looks like it's super tight and not a lot of kind of flare there at the end. It will be deep carry, so I do like that. And that angle, I'm just not sure that I like that. I don't know why you feel the need to put your brand on the clip. In all fairness, Microtech does the same thing. So does the Lightning Elite. So, that's not a ding on Kershaw. I just don't know why they feel the need to do that. But Overall, I just think it's an ugly clip, and I don't know why they decided to go with that design at an angle in such a small clip. We'll see. Maybe it works great. Maybe I'll end up loving it. It is reversible, so you can take it off, switch it over, and it'll run this way. Still at an angle, just go in this direction, obviously, as you flip it over. So, you know, if you're left or right-handed, that's nice, having it be reversible. That's about it, guys. Initial thoughts on the Livewire. I'm excited to actually get it in my pocket, wear it for a while, check it out and use it, and see what I think. I think I'm going to like it. And so far, you know, as far as just ease of deployment, yeah, I mean, I think this thing feels like a winner. And again, all the reviews almost that you see online and anything I've heard about it, people tend to love this knife. So I'm hoping that I will have the same experience as well. So guys, if you enjoy the content, like and subscribe. I know I haven't posted anything in a while. I'm going to try to get better at doing that. Just been busy. You know, like and subscribe. That allows me to know that people are still watching the channel, and that, you know, encourages me to put out more content. So thanks, guys.